Tansei, I'm Chris Nachkite. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. An Indigenous man in Manitoba is suing two Manitoba health authorities and a doctor, alleging medical negligence and systemic discrimination.
Lightly touched the area that I was pointing to and said, I don't know what to tell you. We don't treat you here for hangovers.
Equitable, fair treatment for all.
One of Justin Flett's lawyers read a statement from the 46-year-old father and grandfather on Tuesday. The Tatasqueyak Cree Nation member sought help at the Paw Hospital in 2023 for sharp abdominal pain. He says he was refused treatment there, so he took an 11.5-hour bus ride to Winnipeg, where he waited several hours at Seven Oaks Hospital to be seen by a doctor. 34 hours later, he would undergo emergency surgery at Grace Hospital for a burst appendix and has been living with complications ever since.
The experiences of Justin Flett and Brian Sinclair and many others are not just tragic. They are a reflection of a healthcare system that still fails to fully respect the humanity and the dignity of Indigenous patients.
Flett is seeking a court declaration that his right to life and equal treatment was violated, as well as damages. The Northern and Winnipeg regional health authorities have declined to comment and have not yet filed statements of defense. To read more about this story, you can go to our website at www.aptnnews.ca, where our Kathleen Martin has more details. A 12-year-old girl has died following a snowmobile accident in northern Manitoba. On Friday, January 10th at around 8 p.m., RCMP responded to a report of a snowmobile accident near God's Lake Narrows, a fly-in First Nation in northeastern Manitoba. When they arrived on scene, no one was there. However, later they found the people involved at the local nursing station. A 12-year-old boy was driving the snowmobile along with a 14-year-old male passenger and 3 more 12-year-olds who were on a toboggan that was being pulled by the snowmobile. The toboggan hit a tree stump and a 12-year-old female was thrown. She was seriously injured and died at the nursing station. The RCMP are still investigating and say none of the children were wearing helmets at the time. Another scathing report from experts in BC are calling on all levels of government to do more to address what they say is a climate emergency. APTN's Tina House has this story.
British Columbia is not the leader that it claims to be. Initial progress has stalled and emissions are rising.
This climate action report says BC is not doing enough to protect its citizens against climate change. And at this press conference, a diverse group of advocates and leaders, including Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, have joined forces to speak up against what they say is a ticking time bomb.
It's only going to get worse, and we have to understand that LNG is not the answer. The market is global, it's volatile, and it's too dangerous and too destructive. So I think it's time that our governments woke up to that fact.
Fiona Koza is with the West Coast Environmental Law. She agrees with Grand Chief and says BC needs to take a stronger legal stance towards the fossil fuel industry.
BC is facing millions of dollars for climate damage and adaptation costs related to floods, heat waves, drought, and wildfire damage across the province and cannot afford these rising costs. The province should take legal action to hold the fossil fuel industry accountable.
And with the ongoing wildfires continuing to burn in Los Angeles, California, experts say the signs are there that we are facing even more catastrophic weather-related events if nothing is being done now. Katisha Paul is the youth representative for the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. She says she's very concerned over what she is seeing happen.
It's in our epidemiology to protect the land. We haven't sat idly. And it's things like these annual reports that will help us, commit us to taking grand actions in the face of such an emergency. It is a climate emergency. We have to change the terminology that we're using. Climate crisis. It's no longer just global warming.
Among the 10 recommendations, the report does acknowledge that the BC government has initiated some long-term strategies, but they're asking for them to do even more.
BC needs to invest 2% of its GDP, equivalent to $8.5 billion, towards advancing a zero-emissions economy and creating thousands of good jobs.
With the 10 recommendations here in this report confront the climate emergency crisis, experts are saying that government needs to do more in all levels of government before it gets worse, with them predicting a hotter and drier summer. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
The province of Manitoba has announced its new plan to end chronic homelessness. The main focus is getting people out of encampments and into housing. Sierra Bettens has more.
After months of planning, Premier Wap Kinew unveiled Manitoba's plan to end chronic homelessness on Tuesday.
It's called Your Way Home. And speaking to people who've been living in tents, people who've been out on the streets struggling with addictions or mental health issues or that intergenerational trauma, we are committed to working with you to help you find your way home.
The strategy includes a 30-day encampment outreach plan. After identifying the site, outreach workers will help individuals move from encampments to housing. Once everyone has moved, the City of Winnipeg will clean and decommission the site.
A compassionate approach to help people who are right now homeless, moving them out of encampments into safe housing with the supports that they need.
Tessa Blakey-Whitecloud, the former CEO of Silo Mission, has been hired as the Premier's senior advisor on ending chronic homelessness. She says transitioning people from encampments has been challenging, but believes that's due to a housing gap.
Because we're asking folks to move from encampments without having any housing options for them to move into, and without those housing options being planned with their specific needs in mind. And so we have been crying as a sector to say the solution to homelessness is housing units.
Kinew also acknowledged the complexities of homelessness and its disproportionate impact on Indigenous peoples. The 2022 Winnipeg Street Census found that over 75% of unhoused people in Winnipeg are Indigenous.
Some of the people that we see at a 190 site are products of the child welfare system because of their parents' experience in the 60s scoop and their grandparents' experience in the residential schools.
In the long run, the province plans to increase social housing supply, establish a housing-first approach, recruit and train more frontline staff, and invest in wraparound supports for mental health and addictions. Housing, Addictions and Homelessness Minister Bernadette Smith says that includes adding 300 social housing units.
These will be coming with supports in the next coming months. We will be working with organizations to support folks based on their needs. Some of those will be in Manitoba Housing, some of those will be in the community.
The province says they've housed more than 1,200 Manitobans in the past year. The Manitoba NDP government has vowed to end chronic homelessness in 2 terms, or by 2031. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. And you can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. When we come back, we'll take you to the Wanuskewin Heritage Center near Saskatoon, where participants learn to make traditional fur mitts. We're back in about 3 minutes. Welcome back. Bentwood Boxes are iconic cultural symbols of the Haida, Tsimshian, and Tlingit people in northwestern Canada. And as Sarah Connors shows us, a Bentwood box maker in northern British Columbia is passing on the traditional art form to the next generation.
Atlin-based artist Joanne Williams is a knowledge holder for a Tlingit art form that goes back thousands of years. While her methods look a bit different than those used by her ancestors, The heart of her craft is deeply rooted in tradition. That tradition is the dozens of Bentwood boxes scattered across her living room.
I haven't had a living room for quite a while now, and I don't mind it because I know that it's our gold, and we both are really eager to teach and to pass on the knowledge.
Bentwood boxes were traditionally used for cooking, storage, gifts, and burial. Typically made out of cedar, they often display family crest or cultural imagery. Williams learned the art form from her grandmother, respected Atlan elder Elizabeth Nyman, as a child.
I think of my grandmother all the time, and I actually am very proud of what I'm doing for her because she actually really wanted us to teach, and she wanted to bring the boxes back to Atlan.
But don't be fooled by these boxes' simple design. Williams says a lot of skill and craftsmanship goes into making them. With a little help from husband Maurice, planks of wood are steamed until pliable.
This wood is yellow cedar. This is the lip here. I'm going to be bending it towards the lip.
The wood is then bent into shape and the two ends are temporarily screwed together while the wood dries. The pair teach the craft at schools and to anyone interested in learning.
I make the boxes very easy, and they're very thin for the teaching boxes. So yes, you'll find that they're very easy. But when you're doing the thicker box, you'll realize how hard it is. I need you to help me hold this one.
Williams estimates she and Maurice have made at least 5,000 boxes over the years. She says it's all about passing down tradition to the next generation.
If I teach one person and they teach 5 people, that's a lot of people. I got more than 2,000 people that I've taught already, so I'm pretty proud of that.
Williams hopes that by teaching Bentwood box making, she can pass the feeling of achievement on to others.
And accomplishments are great to have, so I'd really like more people to experience that accomplishment. And making the Bentwood box is a big accomplishment.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Atlan.
Over the weekend, crafters met up at the Wanuskewin Heritage Park northeast of Saskatoon to learn how to make traditional fur mitts. The facilitator's goal was to bring people together and to pass on a tradition. As Carla Shinkaruk tells us, students from a variety of backgrounds were immersed in a culture fabric of the prairies.
To be coming down the mitten.
The saying cold hands, warm heart is a fitting one for this class where they're making fur mittens.
It's really important to be able to come together and build community spaces, relationship, kinship, and practicing all of those ties.
The location is significant, being here at Wanuskewin Heritage Park.
This site historically was used by Indigenous people pre-contact, and so even just being able to come back to this land where we know that Indigenous people were.
The classes here focused on the Indigenous concept of sharing.
We have oral tradition, right, and a lot of our knowledge or our teachings are written down. The way that you share them is just spending time with your community, spending time with the people around you.
A long time ago, our cookums and our aunties and our uncles and our mushums would have gathered around the table and they would have done those skills like beating and tufting and quilling and putting mittens together.
There is a lot of cutting and sewing here, but what they're stitching together is much more symbolic.
Reconciliation in action. We're having honest conversations about the history of where we live, and especially Treaty 6 territory, and then being able to come together both as Indigenous people and settlers and work together to build community.
These participants can also take in exhibits or dances. So at the end of 2 days, these students get to take home warm mittens and much more.
I love it, and the atmosphere is just nice and quiet and calm, and it's very nice and therapeutic, I'll say.
My mother, she's a residential school survivor, so we kind of grew up having everything about our culture kind of stripped away.
For Indigenous Circle, I'm Carla Shinkaruk.
We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, do you think the Indigenous Languages Act is enough to sustain Indigenous languages? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Have your say at www.aptnnews.ca and cast your ballot. Cree pop singer Jessa Sky from the Treaty 8 territory is up next to talk to us about her music career, including her recent work with Winnipeg artist Matt Mac. We'll be right back. On the east coast, Charlottetown -2, Halifax sunny and -2. The Grand River -13, Kuujjuaq -16. Montreal -8, Quebec City -9. London -8, Toronto -6. Sudbury -14, Wawa -14. Churchill -11, Thompson -2. -9 in Gimli, Dauphin -1. -1 in Swift Current, Uranium City -6, Buffalo Narrows 1, -8 in Grand Prairie, Peace River 0, Calgary 9, Red Deer 3, 1 in Kamloops, Campbell River 5, Dease Lake -2, Prince Rupert 4, Beaver Creek -19, Dawson -13. -26 in Wrigley, Norman Wells -21, Inuvik -21, Colville Lake -22, Baker Lake -23, Whale Cove -22, and Arctic Bay -33. Our next guest on the show is Jessa Sky, who is a Cree singer-songwriter from the Treaty 8 territory and calls the Edmonton area home.
Took away our voice and left us nothing. Every day another one goes missing.
Just last year, Jessa Sky released her first album titled Sky's the Limit. And in that album, she shares her very raw thoughts and emotions about missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and mental health and addiction recovery by sharing her own personal battles, but she does it in a way that is uplifting and positive through her heartfelt lyrics and melodies. Jessa Sky hopes her story can inspire others to find healing as she celebrates almost a year and a half of sobriety. We recently spoke to Jessa Sky from Edmonton. Here's that interview. Jessa Sky, thank you so much for speaking with us today. For those who may not know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and why music and writing music is so important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Tansei, thank you for having me. I am a singer-songwriter, originally from Treaty 8 territory, but I reside in Treaty 6 territory. I've been doing music professionally since 2021, and I do music basically because that's all I know. It's not really music or Jessa Sky and then me. It's kind of just how I survived the things that I've gone through. Music got me through a lot when I was little. And so I just know I was put on this earth to help people, and that's why I've been through so many things. And if I can help one person feel less alone or feel like seen, heard, validated, and loved, then I've done my job. But yeah, I basically sing, go on tour, kind of talk about it all online as well.
That's so great to hear, Jessa. And your songs are not your usual pop songs. You talk about some very serious topics that we experience daily within our Indigenous communities, like missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and suicide, sobriety, and mental health. Can you explain why those topics are so close to your heart?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for validating that. I have been through a lot in this 29 years of my life, and at the time I felt like, why am I going through this? Like, I'm not going to survive this. And as someone who's attempted at her life 8 times, I've been through addiction myself. I have 7 mental health diagnoses. I'm a huge advocate for the missing and murdered Indigenous women because I actually had a scare. I was missing for about 6 days. Many moons ago, and I write about it because it's important, and I know I'm not the only person going through this. Like you said, we suffer and deal with all these things in our communities, so I'm not going to be a victim about it. I'm going to use what Creator gave me, this voice and a platform to broadcast it and talk about it because it's important and it needs to be talked about. And since I've been through these things, it's authentic. I write about it because I'm going through it. So very simply, that's why I do that.
Yeah, so important. You also recently did a heartfelt song with Winnipeg artist Matt Mack called Forever. Can you tell us what it was like working with Matt Mack and also joining him on stage for his tour?
Yes, absolutely. So I was flown out to meet, I call him Maddie. He's like my little brother. We joke we must have the same dad that never came home with the milk, because we just instantly hit it off. He's so funny. He's just such a genuine soul. He's so talented. But I was flown out to do that music video right after I lost my partner to suicide. And that trip saved my life. And he is an incredible human being. We're actually hopefully planning to go on a bigger tour. Nothing's confirmed, but it's such an honor to not only do a song with him, but to know he's such a person with integrity. He has a story, and he's not a victim either. So we have a lot in common, and it's definitely one of my favorite songs for sure to this day.
Jessa, our next generation is most likely watching this interview at home. What is your message to them if they have difficulties in their life?
My message to them is that it's just one day at a time, and I know sometimes in the moment when we're going through things, it does not make sense. And what I found freedom in is accepting whatever is happening in that moment. And sometimes I don't get to know why, but it's my responsibility to keep going, and that it's okay to not be okay. And so if you're not okay, reach out, because people do care, even though when you feel like you're worthless and you're not important, you are important. And I always have a open DM policy for people. So just reach out, and it will be your power one day if you allow it. You'll look back and you'll be grateful you went through those things if you choose to do something about it to help someone else.
Great words of advice. And finally, do you have any words of advice for other young up-and-coming Indigenous artists who want to start a career in music but don't know where to start?
Oof. Yes, because that was definitely my situation. Use the resources that you have. Social media, some people can think it's really toxic and not a good tool, but social media has saved my life more than once. And to use the resources, so get a YouTube channel, start, if you're a writer, if you're a poet, if you like music, and that's what gets you up in the morning, then you pursue that. Pursue it, and just do the next right thing. Just like focus, dial in, it's the next right thing. Write a song, worry about that, worry about tomorrow. Just simplify it. Yeah.
Jessa Sky, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and we'll make sure to keep listening.
Thank you for having me.
And Jessa Sky will be in Winnipeg in late February. We're hoping she can stop by in studio and chat with us in person. Keep an eye out for that one. That's your daytime newscast for this Wednesday, January 15th. We're back again for your evening newscast. Make sure to join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, Kwana Hai Hai Miigwech. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.